and stop. Okay. Hello and welcome to Flaggerdoot Chasing. I'm Scott, and with us is Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey Scott, how's it going?
Good, good. So today we're discussing why aren't executives more engaged in agile transformation? And Chris, can you get us started?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen here, Scott. I'm going to show you results from a recent State of Agile report. And one of the things that you see here is really not enough leadership participation. But more importantly, when you look at all of these numbers, you see that participation rate at 42%, and you scan down the side, you see that organizational resistance to change, inadequate management support, lack of business owner availability. You can see that engagement of leadership weaving its way all the way through the response. So it's really critical for any transformation work. Scott, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's saying what we saw, which is, you know, leaders and executives are the culture drivers in companies, and when they're not participating, it's tough. It's tough to make a transformation successful.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking about this. If you're in a football game and the quarterback hands you the ball and you're running towards the line, you got to trust that your linemen are going to be opening those holes for you. So you need to have that air cover, that support that the
Yep,
executives provide, so that it enables people to feel that they've got the confidence to go forward.
yep, exactly.
All right.
And Chris, if it's okay, I'm gonna share some of the realities that go along with what you brought up from
Yeah,
the report.
I'll go ahead and close that. All right.
That sounds good. So here are some of the realities that Chris and I have come across in working with executives and trying to get their participation level up. Is first of all, they're just not predisposed to risk their political capital. I mean, they worked hard to get it. That we expected as transformation people to automatically get it. I just don't think it's going to happen, Chris. You?
No, I certainly feel the same way. We're totally invested in transformation work. We've seen the benefits, we've seen the behaviors change, we've seen the enthusiasm and how people really take to it very, very well. And that's oftentimes the challenge of translating that passion that we see in the transformations up to the executives, because they've never seen it before. They've got transformation fatigue
Yeah.
in many cases, right?
And two, they just have different worries than the execution layer. I mean, often they're beholden to that layer, the executive layers above them, and so they're just trying to do, especially in larger companies, they're trying to do what the layer above them wants because that's how they get rated, that's how they get their compensation changed. Um, and the higher you go in this executive suite, the less they care about a quote transformation and the more they care about, you know, directly affecting the financials and potentially, much larger initiatives that affect the company.
Yeah, they play a different persona. To assume that you can port and scale Agile using the same techniques from teams all the way up through the organizations is oftentimes a mistake. And I know
Yep.
we're going to speak about that in a later cast.
Yep. Good subject for another video.
Yeah.
And then, one of the things we've run across because we've been in Fortune 50 companies quite a bit is um, those companies are very quarterly driven. And so the executives are quarterly driven, trying to make those goals per quarter. And typically transformations are just not quarterly animals. They take an extended period of time. You can start small and then they expand, but that takes time and it's typically not within a quarter.
That's right. So true. And that also feeds into some of what the executives wants. They want to know where they are at any given point in time. And just like anything else, the shorter time to get that information into their hands, into their eyes, is for the better, so that they can act, they can support, they can decide. And that's really what it's all about in terms
Yeah.
of business
You know what?
agility.
That brings up something that's been on my mind too is as transformation leaders, really expecting them to change their own habits without a pretty and serious inducement to do so. I think that's always it's not a very good strategy unless you happen to come across an executive who's just very much into the transformation, which is fantastic. But most of the time, the numbers that Chris went over, they bear out that that's not the norm. And it's just risky to expect executives to change their habits without really serious inducements to do so.
Yeah, and one of the inducements we try to drive into is really providing information and insight that they don't have today. Well, there's so much going on in an enterprise. You've got so many different concurrent parallel processes executing for them to win in the marketplace. It's really challenging to keep tabs on where you are at any given point in time.
Chris, wouldn't you say, I mean, most of the stuff that we've done, and, you can do things like joint accountability, early wins so you can gain momentum, consistent upward reporting, regular touch points may be established, but these are really push strategies.
Mhm.
And so they're going to be limited in their effectiveness. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you got to very, very much so. You're trying to convince up the line, and you really got to move it towards a pull approach where
Exactly.
the executives start to feel comfortable that they have the opportunity, the capability to actually ask for information and insights that aren't present in today's business, and that their team really wants to surface that information for them, because it really is all about getting information into the hands of people at the right time to make the right decisions.
Yeah. I would say, those push strategies that we mentioned, they work better in smaller companies when your executive and your execution layer are closer together. But the larger the company, the farther the distance between these layers, and that makes it all the more difficult.
Mhm.
Besides this, the inherent complexity of a highly matrix, perhaps a command control style large company,
Yep.
which makes it very tough.
Scott, can you think of a time when you've had an executive that truly engaged in a transformation?
Wow, that's a great question. I've had touches of it, and I've had executives react positively when I've said, "Hey, here's what I'm going to do. I need air cover." But I don't think that I've had, because we mostly do very large companies, I don't think I've had an executive that just truly gets it and engages at a deep, take that back. We had a shared experience with a
Mhm.
VP level executive or a general manager level executive that really started to engage with lots of effort.
Mhm. Yeah, I
And I
tend
think,
to yeah, I tend to see flashes of it from time to
yeah,
time. Sometimes we're swimming upstream against their management disciplines, their experience, their learned behaviors. But that those little flashes of insight and participation, where and oftentimes maybe they go to the board,
yeah, I think
go to
the
the
piece
mat.
we're both thinking of is that we probably said 20 or 30 times, I don't know, let's go check the board.
Hmm.
And that continual reinforcement of that eventually got that person to go on a board.
Hmm.
But I still don't think that leads to consistent behavior. I think that leads to occasional behavior, or it can help. And I've heard of it in another company too, where it was a physical Kanban board at this point, and the VP was constantly going down to take a look at another area's board because they wanted to see where their initiative was, which was really cool. And when you get that, you got to cherish it because it doesn't happen
Yeah,
very often.
exactly, exactly.
Well, Chris, any last thoughts on this? I know I've got some, but I want to share. But any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I want to echo back some of the words I said right at the start. Um, it's not possible to overestimate how important leadership is, both in the participation, the modeling, the engagement, and a lot of times that intellectual curiosity that hopefully the leadership brings to the table to sort of understand and ask some probing questions and make it a more collaborative effort to really model the way for their organizations and their leadership, to give them that safety and that air cover that it's okay to do something new. I really see that thread going through those reports in State of Agile.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on what I wanted to hit on too, is that our industry in general, this optimization, transformation industry in general really hasn't done enough to create the pull to executives so that it makes it easy for them. So instead of the push here, do this, do that, it's more, we need to create something that pulls them into the experience. And I think that a key to that is going to be the development, which by the way, we're working on something on that end, is developing an executive first experience that doesn't rely on things like the Jira Labyrinth or a Scrum board or a Kanban board or even a portfolio board or OKRs. These are just not enough incentives to draw most senior executives onto the execution layer. And so we're going to need that executive first experience to be able to accomplish that.
Yeah.
You-
Yeah, really, really agree. I think that's when we do any retrospectives with our engagements, it always comes back to getting that kind of real insights. And it respects the time of the leaders.
Yep.
Their job isn't to lead a transformation. They've
Yeah.
got people to do that. It's there to sponsor it and to become engaged within it. But they also need to really feel like they can get those snapshots without having to become Agile certified
Yeah.
in their role.
Yeah, I don't think we covered that. I don't know. I mean, that's one of the big realities is they're just being pulled in a ton of directions.
Yeah.
And their pressures are different from, we got to finish transformation or make it successful, but they're getting pulled in a ton of directions.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't still think it's fair to classify executives as the big problem. It's up to us to create the incentives in place for them to change their habits and engage at the level we need them to.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. That's, I don't have much more to say on this topic. Got lots to say on other topics. So,
Yep, me too. So folks, if you're viewing this video on YouTube and have enjoyed it, please hit the like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, please click on the subscribe button. And if you're an executive at a company contemplating transformation or trying to fix a broken one or just trying to optimize the production capability of your organization, please feel free to go. It's in the description of our YouTube page. Click there and ask for a 30 minutes guidance session with us. And until next time, take care.
take care.